Boston Tea Party. So basically, leading up to the event, the American colonists believed that England was unjustly taxing them to pay for England's debt in the French and Indian War. And the colonists also believed that Parliament, which was England's form of government, didn't have the right to tax them because they didn't have a role in their parliament. So this created the famous phrase called taxation without representation. And it's been estimated that American colonists drank around 1.2 million pounds of tea every year. And because of this, England thought it could make more money by taxing American colonists for tea. As a result, the colonists began a smuggling operation where they imported their tea from the Dutch and other European markets instead of England. However, these operations were in violation of the Navigation Act, so in 1767, Parliament reacted by passing the Indemnity Act, which got rid of the tax and lowered the price of tea to the same as the Dutch. But later that year, Parliament put a new tax on tea by the Townshend Revenue Act. This act also taxed other imported goods, not just tea. But the taxes on these other goods were removed in 1770, and in 1773 the Tea Act was passed. This act gave the British East India Company control over all the tea sales in the colonies, and smuggling started up again. But the Townshend Revenue Act tea tax stayed in place despite many protests. The American colonists were very angry about this and thought that the Tea Act was just a way for England to get money from the tax they already enforced. The sale of the tea directly from the British East India Company to the colonies ruined the smuggling business for colonial merchants and raised tea costs more than the British India Company's tea. Smugglers like John Hancock and Samuel Adams were trying to protect their money by opposing the Tea Act, and Sam Adams convinced the Patriots to oppose British tea on the basis that England was abolishing their human rights by taxing them without representation in Parliament. So this is where the Sons of Liberty come in, and they were a major group in the Boston Tea Party. And so the Boston Tea Party was basically led by them and Sam Adams, and it was organized by John Hancock, another Son of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty were a group of colonial merchants and tradesmen who came together to protest the various forms of taxation. The group included important people like Benedict Arnold, Paul Revere, Patrick Henry, Sam Adams, and John Hancock. Led by Sam Adams, the Sons of Liberty held meetings and rallied against Parliament and protested the Dartmouth, a British East India Company ship with tea on it. By December 16, 1773, the Dartmouth had been joined by the ships the Beaver and the Eleanor, all of them carrying tea. That morning, the Sons of Liberty held a meeting at the Old South Meeting House, where a lot of colonists refused to pay taxes on the tea or let it be unloaded, stored, sold, or used. The governor refused to allow the ships to return to England and the tax paid and the tea unloaded. That night, a large group of men, many supposedly members of the Sons of Liberty, disguised themselves in Native American clothing and boarded the ships and threw 342 chests of tea in the sea. So this event ultimately contributed to the American revolutionary spirit because the Tea Party caused significant property damage and deeply angered the British government, and Parliament responded with the Coercive Acts of 1774, which colonists began to call the Intolerable Acts. These acts, among other things, reversed Massachusetts' colonial charter and closed Boston's port. This convinced more moderate Americans of the radicals' claims that British taxes meant an attempt to overthrow representative government in the colonies and subject the Americans to British tyranny. Resistance in the colonies intensified, and 3 years after the Tea Act, the colonies declared their independence as the United States of America, and the revolution had begun.